It is known as the Rainbow Nation for its cultural, linguistic, and religious diversity. Its constitution alone acknowledges 11 different languages. Yes, this is South Africa, a country situated in the extreme south of Africa. This is not a small country. Its surface area is larger than Germany, France, Italy, Belgium, and the Netherlands combined. It is by far the most developed economy of all the countries situated south of the Sahara Desert. In the year 2010, it was the first African country to hold a soccer world championship. This was the summer of Shakira's Waka Waka, if anyone cares to remember that. The most important month in South Africa's history was April 1994. Between the 26th and 29th of that month, South Africa celebrated the first free, universal, and democratic elections. They were also the longest because the elections lasted for 4 long days. During that time, South Africans left their houses massively to vote, having to wait in queues kilometers long. The hype was justified, for these elections meant the end of 300 years of colonialism and white supremacy. The elections marked the end of apartheid.
Apartheid.
Apartheid was a system based on racial segregation which remained in effect for 50 years. It mainly consisted of separating the white population from the black population. This applied in any situation: living, studying, even the spending of leisure time. Obviously, as you might imagine, all of the best areas and services were built for and used by the white population. A good example of this was the ambulances. Even though the black population were 80% of the population, they barely had any ambulances to use. However, the ambulances for the white population were numerous and refused to carry any black passengers because they couldn't, according to the law. Apartheid gave the white population all the political power and also established many limitations precisely in order to consolidate that white power. As an example, mixed-race relationships and marriage were completely forbidden. Quite simply, it left the black population in an inhumane situation. It could be said that there were 2 different South Africas, one black and terribly poor, and the other white and very wealthy. And of course, those who rebelled suffered terrible punishments and repression. On the 16th of June 1976, thousands of black students went on a demonstration to demand social and educative improvements. Hundreds of them were massacred.
I got injured in my back. I have a scar in my back. I was running over the fence there, down that, running away from the police.
Mandela's dream.
But all that changed in 1994 thanks to Nelson Mandela, also known as Madiba. He was considered the father of the country. Mandela led the political fight against apartheid and racism, but he had to pay for it. In 1961, he was sentenced to life imprisonment for betrayal. Mandela spent 27 years in jail until 1992. Nevertheless, 2 years after his release, in 1994, during the country's first free elections, he was elected as the President of South Africa, the first black president in the country's history. After this happened, many were surprised to see Mandela aiming for reconciliation rather than revenge. Mandela dreamt of a free, united, and prosperous South Africa. He made it clear in his inaugural speech,
"We have triumphed in the effort to implant hope in the breasts of the millions of our people. We enter into a covenant that we shall build a society in which all South Africans, both black and white, will be able to walk tall without any fear in their hearts, assured of their inalienable right to human dignity, a rainbow nation at peace with itself and the world."
Mandela kept his word. He worked towards a united South Africa, and when the time came, he left power following the limits of the Constitution. This all turned him into a legend for the country.
What is verbatim. The past is the past. We look to the future now.
Well, let's now focus on present-day South Africa. It is the only country in the world to have 3 capital cities. Cape Town, the capital city for legislative power, Pretoria for executive power, and Bloemfontein, the judicial capital city. And on top of all that, neither is the most populated or the one where most businesses concentrate. For that, we have to move to a 4th city, Johannesburg. It's even not uncommon for different textbooks to state different cities as the capital of South Africa. Now, after the fall of apartheid, South Africa experienced quite an economic boost. Since 1994, the economy, considering purchasing power, has tripled. Poverty has been strongly reduced, and hundreds of thousands of black families make it into the middle class every single year. And even though violence is still high, it does need to be said that South Africa is quite a violent country, it has also been reduced. Further, in general, the access to drinkable water, electricity, and healthcare has also improved quite a lot. To illustrate the situation, South Africa is the biggest tourist center and financial power in the south of the continent. Its stock market is the most important in Africa, and it is also an important place for the automotive industry. Companies such as BMW and General Motors have factories here. So it all sounds pretty good, right? Well, things today are actually not looking that rosy.
Crisis and stagnation.
Despite its numerous achievements, the economy hasn't changed since 2009. The economy isn't growing. Unemployment rates are one of the highest in the world, and in general, very few people are working. The country has a population of about 55 million people, 15 million of which are without work, and many of the jobs that the people do have are informal. And this is not the only problem. Investment by companies has also kept decreasing in the last 9 years. Its currency, the rand, has also greatly depreciated, and public debt is about to be declared as junk bonds. This is a pretty major economic disaster. In fact, in the last years, people with money have begun leaving the country. So the big question is, what happened in South Africa? What led to this crisis?
Jacob Zuma.
This is Jacob Zuma. He's been in office since 2009, and his years in office have been, well, they've been a giant mess. The man is facing 783 corruption cases, and he has been described as being a professional at taking things that are not his.
South Africa's main opposition party is accusing President Jacob Zuma of flagrant abuse of public money over multi-million euro upgrades to his home. Additions to Zuma's home include a swimming pool, cattle enclosure, and an amphitheatre.
But this is not the only issue. Mr. Zuma's political decisions don't encourage foreign investment. Further, the president's labor regulations are an obstacle when it comes to job creation, and the regulations are getting more and more rigid. His last idea was a huge raise in the minimum wage, something that doesn't make a bunch of sense in a country where there are so few working people. In fact, many financial analysts have criticized the measure by saying it's nonsensical to establish a minimum wage which amounts to twice as much as half of workers are making. Now, to be honest, we all do want our salaries to raise, but I think it's a better idea to create some wealth first. If job creation was already an issue before, imagine what's going to happen with higher salaries. And South Africa has other problems too. An important one is its problematic education system.
An awful education system.
The education system in South Africa is pretty awful. Picture this. 1 in every 3 students who has attended school for 6 years has difficulty when it comes to something as essential as reading, and only 1 in every 100 black students gets an engineering diploma. So we can probably now understand why national companies complain about the difficulty of finding skilled labor. And this has got nothing to do with money. South Africa is one of the countries with the highest investments in education in the world. So the big question is, what is happening? Well, according to some people, the ones who are to blame are the Democratic Teachers Union. They control the state education system, and it has become something of a mafia. The union is an ally of President Zuma. Zuma, besides putting an end to education supervision, has also pulled many strings to get more teachers into the system. This has caused the education level of teachers themselves to become very low. Now, a few years ago, maths teachers in the country were given a test. These teachers were teaching math to 11 and 12-year-olds. What was the result? Well, 8 out of these teachers got lower results than were expected of their students. And to be honest here, maths is not exactly one of President Zuma's strong suits.
This is President Zuma attempting to say 769,870.
769, 800 and 700, listen properly, 820.
Now, obviously, the results for white students who go to private schools are far better. This shows that maybe some of the apartheid heritage is still very much in effect.
Racial conflict.
If these problems weren't bad enough, racial conflict in South Africa has also been growing in the last few years. The Economic Freedom Fighters is a radical political party that was founded in 2013. This party is now the third largest force in the country. Some of its members are suggesting to almost invert apartheid and apply it to the white population. It is still a minority party, but as an element of subversion, it is working quite well. So anyway, it now looks as if Mandela's dream is now in danger. So this is what we think here at VisualPolitik. But what do you think? Do you think that South Africa will continue to pursue Nelson Mandela's dream? Do you think it will become the most prosperous nation in Africa once again? Or do you think hatred, distrust, and bad politics will triumph? Do let us know in the comment section below this video. We'd love to know what you think. Also, if you did enjoy this video, please do click that thumbs up button below, and don't forget to subscribe if you haven't already for brand new videos every Monday and Thursday. There's a button below the video as well as on the screen now, so be sure to click on that. And as always, I'll see you in the next video.
Too proud.
So tense. I kept on looking at my watch. What is the rough?